with you and give her answers. We also have taken questions over the internet. We're going to get to some of those as well. We promise you this will be a very interesting evening.
And the big topic, how safe are we in the city of Los Angeles? We're going to go first to our guy at City Hall, KNX News reporter Craig Figner, kind of get a snapshot of where we stand right now.
Our city is getting a bad reputation.
Los Angeles Councilwoman Tracy Park saying LA needs to get serious about its approach to public safety.
I am sick and tired of living in the middle of a failed social experiment.
Her sharp criticism last Friday comes just as Mayor Bass is about to make the biggest call a mayor can make when it comes to public safety. She'll appoint a new chief to the Los Angeles Police Department. How did we get to this moment?
So my mission is to move Los Angeles forward.
First day as LA's mayor, Karen Bass declared two top jobs, keeping the city safe and housing the homeless. The two are, of course, linked. Nearly 18 months in, significant citywide homelessness persists. Even around Los Angeles City Hall, there's still a sense of disorder. It greets tourists and locals. You're in the shadow of City Hall, some encampments across the street. Do you feel safe?
Yes. It's daytime. At night, I won't be here.
And recently, you'll remember this, the so-called trash house on Martel near Melrose, it demanded attention. Garbage was piled high, garbage front and back. Mayor Bass and Councilmember Katie Yaroslavsky were unable to explain why a history of complaints from neighbors went ignored.
It's been a problem site for apparently years.
How'd it get so bad?
You know, we just found out about it on Sunday.
All that is the backdrop for the selection of LAPD's next chief of police. Soon as the job became vacant, several City Hall insiders started to suggest it will be Deputy Chief Imada Tingarides. And she's told KNX News she wants the job.
Focus on our number one mission, which is public safety in our communities. And right now we have a crisis with recruitment and retention.
Just last week, we learned that LAPD's sworn ranks have dropped to 8,888 officers, the lowest number in several years, despite LAPD's lucrative hiring bonuses designed to boost recruitment. And then this coming Monday, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass drops her second proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Unlike last year, LA is facing a deficit expected to total hundreds of millions of dollars, a deficit that will challenge previous budget priorities on homelessness and public safety.
All right, now a note. While the mayor's office knew in advance about the broad public safety topics we'll be covering tonight, we want to stress neither she nor her staff have seen your questions, heard your questions before. She's hearing them for the first time tonight, as you are going to be asking them.
So let me start off by asking you, what do you hope to accomplish tonight here?
Oh, you know what? I hope to accomplish an in-depth conversation, because one thing that is tough when you do interviews a lot, you have a soundbite, you have to talk quickly. I like the idea of having a more thorough discussion, and then I love to be able to interact with the audience.
Okay.
Very good.
Well, let's go to the audience then, right?
All
We'll
right.
get right to it. We have Tegan Ryan first, and from Sherman Oaks.
Hi, Mayor Bass. My question is, can we assume that there will be at least one woman candidate considered for the next chief of the LAPD? If the recommendations provided to you are all men, will you be sure to add your own female chief candidate?
Wow, that is a fascinating question. I will tell you that I cannot imagine that there would not be a woman candidate. And let me tell you also something that I have been so pleasantly surprised by. When I talk to officers, officers are very open to a woman. And look at our fire department. I mean, we have an incredible chief, Kristen Crowley. And so I cannot imagine that I would be given recommendations that would not include a woman.
You know, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, there was something that surprised you. Remember we talked about this?
Yes.
You were going around and you were talking to the rank and file. She was talking to all the rank and file and the command structure of the LAPD. And what was the thing that you and I were very surprised about? Go ahead.
I just made an assumption that there would be a tremendous resistance to the idea of somebody from outside of the department being chief, and there was not. And it was, it was mixed, and I was really surprised. So what I've been doing is I've been going around to the various stations, and I've been meeting with the officers and the command staff, as you've mentioned. I've been meeting with business organizations, community organizations, and that's actually the genesis of this town hall when you and I talked, Charles, and
Yes.
I was telling you that I wanted an opportunity to hear from Angelenos because I know that it will be one of the most important decisions I make, and I believe in having a lot of input. But I will tell you, though, that we're going to take all of this input and we're going to give it to the national search firm that is actually doing the search.
I am curious about that. How does a national search firm search for a police chief for LAPD?
Well, you know, I've used a search firm to hire the general manager of the airport, the Department of Water and Power, and what I have learned is that there are search firms that specialize. So this is a search firm that specializes in law enforcement, and actually the particular firm that we chose focuses a lot on California. But if you think about it for a minute, it's not that strange because obviously the individuals that apply more than likely will be from big cities. And how many big cities are there? And so,
It's
you know,
almost so
but
many people.
yeah, right.
job.
There's that's right. But you know what, though? We have a lot of competition because San Diego, San Jose, and I think several other large cities are also looking.
During Craig's piece, we heard Amata Tinkerides, and you kind of perked up there, saying, "Yeah, I'd be open to having that job." What do you think of that?
Well, I was actually surprised. I mean, I do happen to know Commander. I'm not exactly sure what her title was. But I do know her, and I was surprised that she said she was interested.
Why?
Well, just because, I mean, I could imagine that she would be, but usually people are not quite that open.
Okay, so she's lobbying for it?
I don't think so. I mean, I think she was asked the question. If she was lobbying, she would have contacted me and said, hey, no one's
What do you
done
think?
that so far, and I think that's a good thing. that
Are
they
you
haven't
interested
done
in
that
her
so
interest?
far. Well, you know what? I mean, there's a number of people who could certainly rise to the occasion.
All right.
I think we have a lot of talent in the department, and I'm sure we have a lot of talent around the country.
We have our next question from the audience. And by the way, if you see a guy running around with a microphone, that is
him.
Jonathan Service, who's our producer. Let's give him a hand for being athletic enough to run around the room and get our next question. And that one is from, this sounds like a movie, Lena from Pasadena.
Good evening, Mayor. What concrete steps or actions are you going to take to address the systemic racism within our police department?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. You know, what I'm hoping to find in a new chief is a chief that is open, a chief that is definitely in support of community involvement and community-based policing, and a chief that will take into consideration historical issues, whether it's a historical issue over systemic racism, whether we are talking about gender equity, whether we are talking about issues in different communities. Sometimes communities are policed differently, and that becomes a controversial issue. If you're in an affluent area, it might be one way, and if you're in an inner city area, it might be another way.
You're from LA, so...
Born and raised.
Right. What is your assessment of where the relationship now stands between LAPD and the community, the white community, the African-American community, you name it, the Asian community?
Well, you know, one thing that is good about when you run for office, like you run for an office like mayor, is that I spent a year and a half going to every community in the city that I could get to. And there are differences. I think in the more affluent areas, people feel that they are under-policed. There needs to be a more visible presence. They're concerned about that. And I think in some of the inner city areas, people might feel the opposite, like they're not given the same kind of consideration or the same amount of care that they would be in an affluent community.
How do you start to sort that out? And for people who just say, I'm never going to trust police officers, I don't have it. What do you do? What do you do?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, where it becomes very different, if you're talking about an inner city area like South LA that has had bad experiences, when you get into the neighborhoods, you find a difference, especially if you're talking about the senior lead officer. And so what I think needs to happen, and this is one of the structural problems in policing. So you'll have police officers develop a really good relationship with the neighborhood, and it helps to break down some of the opinions you're describing. And then 3 years later, they move. And they move because, I mean, you know, they want a promotion. They want to move up. But one of the things that has occurred when I've met with the officers is that if they were to receive benefits for staying, they might stay longer. So in other words, if they were able to get promoted and have additional pay, they might be willing to stay, but they're almost forced to leave. And that's one of the things that happens, is that in inner city areas, they don't feel as though they have the relationship with the police. And so there's never the opportunity to really build that trust. And when you build the trust, then the person leaves and you got to start all over again. But one thing that I would say, because I've been around for a while, LAPD is different now than it was when I was coming up. I had a tough time during my earlier years. And that I think that there's been a lot of change in the department, but I also think that people who are younger now don't see that change.
Next question is coming from Rudy Melendez from North Hollywood. Rudy, going once, going twice. No, Rudy.
No, Rudy? Okay, well, here's a question that we got courtesy of the wonderful internet. This is from
oh boy,
Jeanette Post from the Fairfax district. She says, I applaud your efforts, I presume she means you, efforts during your first year in office.
But
Wait. She applauds your efforts during your first year in office to address and clean up some of the worst homeless encampments in the city. But why can't you all be more proactive in either preventing the camps from establishing or getting to them much faster?
Well, let me add to that and say where we really have to go is we have got to develop a method of preventing people from ever becoming homeless. And so I will tell you that this is probably one of the greatest challenges because there's no plan. I mean, there's no strategy. There's no best practices that I can look to. So we have to invent it. So one thing that I found when I became mayor is that I inherited 2 nonprofit organizations, one of which is called the Mayor's Fund, and we can talk about that a little later, but another one is called the Getty House Foundation. And so with the Mayor's Fund, actually I'll go to that right now. The Mayor's Fund, we are trying to come up with a way to prevent homelessness. So what we're doing is we're focusing on people who are facing evictions. Now I will tell you, that's a really scary situation because in September of last year, when there were about 30,000 people facing evictions because of the COVID protections leaving. Now that doesn't mean 30,000 people are going to be on the on the streets, but clearly, if you go to the zip codes where that are lower income, those are the ones that are at greater risk. And so we've raised money, we've contracted with some community-based organizations, and they're going out looking for the individuals who are facing eviction. We've recruited, I think, over about 300 lawyers to provide pro bono legal services. So that is our best shot right now, but we really do have to come up with a way to predict who's going to be homeless. The other thing that in reference specifically to what the woman asked is that when we go and when we clear an encampment, we really want to have the neighbors tell us the first time a tent appears. Now, when you see tents come back, it's not the same people. It's people coming because they see a space. But now, you know one thing that's happening, the unhoused are not stupid. They're extremely smart because they're alive. They have survived being on the streets. So in some instances, we know people are showing up where we cleared the encampment because they know we're coming back. But what we want to have happen is we want the neighbors to tell us the minute there's one tent. You gotta get the person housed the minute you see one tent because what happens is that other people start congregating. And one thing that's important to know is that these encampments are like little communities. And the reason why we've been successful in getting people out of tents is because we take everybody together. We take everybody together and move them into a motel.
How much does the national and also the California epidemic of drugs play into this?
It does play in, but you know what? It's a chicken and egg thing, and let me just describe that. A lot of people become unhoused not because they're addicted. They become addicted when they're unhoused. Why? Because you want to survive the night. So you want to stay awake all night. So you start using meth, and you stay awake. But what I think is really important for people to know is that one of the fastest growing sectors of the unhoused are our seniors. I think I fall in that category. People who are in their late 60s and early 70s are falling into homelessness. And just think about why. If you worked in the service industry, you waited tables, you worked at a department store, you have no 401k, you have no pension, and even if you had Social Security, you can't do much with Social Security, not support yourself, you can supplement. And so if their rents go up and they don't have a family to take them in, they're on the street. And can you imagine what the lifespan of a 75-year-old person is on the street?
Well, we've seen this problem too for years and years, and you know that. It's a lot of people have, voted to put money into this problem multiple times, but then they also worry more people are going to fall in, and then you're never going to be able to really keep up with the flow that we're getting. People either coming into the state because there are services here, or people falling into homelessness all the time. So how do you keep pace with it?
So we have to come up with this way of preventing homelessness, okay? So we're trying that. Now by the way, Craig, I've been now involved on the national level because I serve as the chair of the National Task Force on Homelessness in the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So now I'm beginning to learn about the nation and meeting with mayors. Nobody has a solution for how to prevent homelessness. But let me tell you about a couple of myths. One common myth is that these people are from someplace else. But we're all Angelenos. And I go out on the street too, okay, with the team. You talk to people and I'll ask you, where are you from? You'll tell me Chicago. How long have you been in LA? Oh, 40 years. But Angelenos tend to do that. I don't know if people do that in other cities, but we do that all the time. We say where we were born. And so now there is a percentage of folks. I mean, you do find people from other cities, but it is a myth. I think Angelenos don't like to accept the fact that these are our people. These are Angelenos that are on the street.
By the way, if you are just joining this broadcast, you are listening to a very special KNX town hall with the Los Angeles Mayor, Karen Bass. I'm Charles Feldman, along with Mike Simpson, and we have a studio audience with us, and the mayor is taking questions from the audience and also from some folks who gave us some questions over various social media.
I've got an affordable housing question now, and this is from Jing and from East LA College.
Hi.
ELAC.
Hi, yes, I am a student journalist from ELAC.
Good.
And my question is this, I grew up in China, in Shanghai, and I lived in 8 countries worldwide. And I have never seen such situation in the United States, especially in Los Angeles or Hawaii, all these cities that they would let the mentally ill and drug addicts walking in the public, in metro, in public transportation, in libraries, like pretty much everywhere the public can go. And it's not even just a public safety issue, it's also kind of affect people's morale. And because me, even though I'm like one of a million Americans who doesn't drive. And so I have to, in facing all these problems everywhere I go. So my question is, last time I asked the metro employee, why these homeless are on the metro everywhere when it rains? And don't they have additional, shelters available to them? And the metro employee answered me that there's no more because it's only our way downtown. So my question is, why don't they just acquire some cheaper estates for homeless housing in the remote area of LA County, which is cheaper real estate and will provide much bigger housing for the homeless, and it will have less impact on the public safety? That's my suggestion and my question. Thank you.
So I think you asked a bunch of questions. Let me try to unpack them. One was about Metro. So what happened in Metro, by the way, this was national. This didn't just happen here. When we were all at home during COVID, the unhoused kind of took over public transportation. And then as we were all coming back out again, then we had this issue. So it's getting a lot better, I hope. By the way, I didn't know this a few months into the job, but a few months into the job, I learned I had another job, which is I chair the Metro board. So I'm in Metro meetings every month. And I was really surprised because 95% of what we talk about in Metro is the unhoused. And so we're beginning to address the problem. It is getting better, but the way we're addressing the problem is through services. But also, you might have noticed ambassadors. We have this new program, ambassadors, and they're community members that have training. Now, the drug problem, this is a sad fact. We had to train the ambassadors how to administer Narcan.
And some have done it multiple times now.
Absolutely, because in the first 6 months last year, I don't have the data from this year, 50 people died on Metro. 50 people died overdosing. Maybe some were health related. And so what we're trying to do, though, is put ambassadors there and put other social service providers there who can get the people to come off and give them housing and other services that they need. It's a work in progress. We have a lot more to do, but it has gotten better.
We're going to take a short commercial break, and when we return, more with Mayor Karen Bass.
All right.
Thank you. Woo! I was afraid of falling.
3 minutes.
We have about a 3-minute break.
And we are back at KNX News Town Hall with LA Mayor Karen Bass talking public safety in Los Angeles. Also, you can watch this, knxnews.com, and we're also on TikTok today.
We are at TikTok. Wow, okay. You watch TikTok?
Hello, Gen Z.
Yeah, do you watch TikTok at all? Be
No,
honest.
I have no idea how to get on TikTok.
How many watch TikTok, just out of curiosity? Oh, well, a lot. Okay, good. I mean, you can watch it in TikTok. We have our next question from Barbara Brody, who are they here?
Yep.
Yeah, they are.
She's
Where's
right
Barbara?
there.
Right there.
Oh, you're right there. All right, Barbara, go ahead. You're on.
Mayor Bass, what are the city's budgeting plans for the 2028 Olympics? On what types of projects will the city be spending money? Transportation, building out event sites, updating infrastructure? What is the plan to make sure that our city doesn't lose money or isn't on the hook for Olympics-related expenses?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And recently I did go to Paris with several members of the city council because I wanted to know. I mean, I remember the Olympics very well, but now I'm supposed to be in charge. So I wanted to go over to Paris to find out what in the world we needed to do, and it was wonderful. I had an opportunity to meet with the mayor of Paris, and she really opened up City Hall to us and provided a lot of input. So when the deal was made with LA City Council to have the Olympics, part of the guarantee was that we would not go into debt. We have LA 28, which is doing a lot of the fundraising, and they've been raising a lot of money now with sponsorships. One of the reasons why we were granted the Olympics is because we didn't need to build any big stadiums or anything like that. And I frankly hope to use all that energy and enthusiasm to say, when millions of people come here, can't we deal with our problem? Because we don't want people to come here and see 70,000 tents. We don't want that. And so I'm hoping that part of that synergy will help us address our problem of the unhoused. You should know that the federal government will kick in and has already kicked in quite a lot. You probably saw the federal government, the Department of Transportation, gave hundreds of millions of dollars to Metro recently because part of the strategy around the games is for it to be a car-free games. So, but all of that is underway now. Did I answer that completely? Were there a couple of
Metro going to be ready for this? Because speaking of TikTok, I'm already seeing TikToks from Paris of people trying to cram in trains that are broken and saying, well, if this is how it's working there right now, it's going to be terrible during the games.
Yeah, I believe Metro will be ready, you know, with what is planned. I mean, there's certain lines that are not planned to be ready, and they won't be. But I do believe that Metro is on target.
But you know, there was an article yesterday, I think it was in the New York Times, out of Paris, where you just were, talking about they're having more difficulty with security issues than they anticipated because of the size of the city, obviously, and how many people they're expecting, and they're limiting how many people can go to different venues.
Right.
How concerned are you, talking about public safety after all, how concerned are you that we will be ready in terms of security in a very volatile world, and it will be probably more so in another few years?
Who knows? Yeah. That's right.
But are you confident that we will be ready and prepared from a security and safety point of view?
I actually am confident about that, as confident as one can be, you know, in this world. One of the things that has already happened is that we've already gotten our federal designation declaring that this is going to be a national security site. And by the way, it's never been designated this early. And so what that does, though, is that allows all the parts of the federal government to come together. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be there for the opening games. But the way they're doing the opening games, we would never do. They're doing the opening games outside. It's going to be on the river, the main river in Paris. So the opening ceremony, not opening games, opening ceremony will be on the river. So that's a little, you talk about, I guess they are concerned about security.
Yeah, I mean.
I mean, ours will be in a stadium.
But we can't do the LA River because we don't have any water.
Well, this is true. So.
Only when it rains.
I mean, you know.
This is true. But I couldn't even imagine us having the opening ceremony outside.
Yeah.
But so it's going to be like all of these boats. The nations will be, you know, on boats. And they are limiting it. So it'll be restricted how many people can be there. But I'll tell you one thing I saw that was really nice. I was very jealous. The housing for the athletes is going to be in an adjacent city. And it's kind of like South LA or East LA. And they built this fabulous housing. It's like 2,000 units for the athletes. And when it's done, it's going to be for the community. Now, we don't need that because our athletes will be, not our athletes in the world will be housed at UCLA. But.
Darn. 4 years, it's going to fly, right? Diane Morales Kamakami from El Sereno.
Yes, hi. Dearest Mayor, what is the city's long-term plan to crack down on speeders?
Sorry.
We'll get to that one later.
Thank you. What is the plan for implementing care courts for homeless people in Los Angeles? I'm an LA County Department of Mental Health substance abuse counselor. What are your expectations for how many mentally ill homeless people in the city might be able to receive treatment through the courts?
You know, one of the saddest things I feel about our society, and this is not just LA, but we basically allowed our mental health system to completely collapse, in my opinion. And obviously everybody wants to blame Reagan, but I mean, that was a long time ago. And so I am hoping that now we're going to begin to look at things differently. And I say these things, I think that it's controversial in some places for me to say what I'm going to say, but I don't really care. I have a medical background, and I just think it is cruel and inhumane to allow people to be on the street who are so profoundly ill that they have no idea they're ill. And I don't think that's freedom. I don't think that's liberty. I think that's cruelty.
Why is that so hard for some people to say, though? If you say you're going to get heat for saying things like that.
Because some people say it's their freedom. It's freedom. And I don't, how can you say that when the person has no idea that they're ill? And you know, I get text messages throughout the day if there's like, you know, a homicide or a traffic accident or something like that. And I can see, especially as it gets later in the night, car accidents, people being killed, pedestrians. And I know that some of the folks are wandering in the street. And you know, we've all experienced that. I'm sure, you know, you've had near misses or you've seen people wandering around in traffic. And so there's some people that believe it's their civil liberties. And I just think that that's cruel.
Well, we've talked about this, I think, before, that when we were growing up, they used to have many more hospitals that had, you know, institutionalized wards for people who were clearly not capable of being moved into a house or an apartment building because they wouldn't be able to take care of themselves and could be a harm to themselves or others. Is that the long-term solution? And one of the reasons why that went away were two: money, and also what Mike brought up, the constitutional issues where people said it invades people's constitutional rights.
Well, let's talk about money for a minute.
Okay.
Choose how you're going to pay. Because right now we have the nation's most expensive mental institution downtown. It's called county jail. So for those people that feel it's their civil liberties to be free, how come they're not protesting the incarceration? Because that's what we have decided to do in our country, which is we incarcerate people who are mentally ill. And as a former medical professional, and I know you know this far better than me, you have people who are mentally ill who commit crimes. You and I know that if we took care of them, we could prevent their deterioration to the point where they committed a crime. We don't do that. We wait until they commit a crime and we lock them up. And then we let them right out again to do the same thing over and over again. And anybody that says we don't have the money, you need to know you're already paying. So you should decide. And one thing too is that if you take somebody and hospitalize them against their will, they're not hospitalized forever. You can stabilize them, right? And you can reintegrate them, but you have to have housing and some place for people to go. But I'm going to tell you, it's one thing that I worry about with what we're doing with Inside Safe, is that we don't have a system as robust as I think we need to have for services. So I worry about the people in the motels who are willing to get off the street, but they still are ill and they're not getting the care that they need.
But what's in the way of having that robust system? Is it purely money? Is it political will?
I always believe it's political will.
Political will.
Because political will determines money.
Sure.
We have money. It's just the choices that we make as to what we're going to do with that money. So what is inhibiting us at Inside Safe, and also what we're trying to do around the unhoused, is that we move people off the street, and when we move them off the street, we then have a contract with a community-based organization, and that community-based organization provides the services. But unfortunately, since we started doing this, we've pushed them way beyond their capacity. So they don't have the capacity to provide the services. So I'm so concerned about this. This is like the number one thing I want to deal with this year, is to figure out the best model for comprehensive services. So I've gone so far as to hire a medical doctor. She's on staff now as the deputy mayor for homelessness and community health to help design that, system. And then the workforce is an issue, right? Because the problem is that we saddle young people with so much student debt that they can't afford to do this kind of work, even though they might want to do it. But what we do have in the city is an abundance of students. And I know, having been a student studying, I was a nurse and then I went back to school and became a PA. And anything you do in the medical field, you have to do clinical hours. You have to do your internships and the rotations. And so we also now have under contract a social worker, a licensed clinical social worker, who is going to help develop a system with the social work students to help supplement what the community-based organizations are doing. I don't fault them because, again, we've moved them way past their capacity. Right now, we're in about 47 motels. Costs way too much money. We have to come up with a better system of interim housing. But basically what the policy, de facto, meaning it wasn't a written policy, but what we have done is that we basically said, you stay in a tent until we build a house. And by the way, after I build the house, I'm gonna come see if you're still in that same tent on that same street, because I have your name and number. That's madness to me. I don't think people should be on the street. And those of us in this room who are of a certain age, remember LA when we did not have tents. Those of you who are young, this has been your entire life. You've grown up thinking that this was the way it was. So I don't know your name, but just know that this is not the way it always was. You described other countries. No, it was not. This is in history relatively new. This started in the mid-'80s. Before then, we didn't even have the word homelessness in our vernacular. Well, he's blamed for everything. The guy's been gone a long time. He's not.
And there's enough blame to go around. So, all right, here's a question from Denise Estrada from Northridge. This one can get you in trouble. Which candidate are you backing in the Los Angeles County District Attorney's race?
I'm not saying.
Wait, there's more. There's more. So I told you it can get you into trouble. And it goes, and Denise goes on to say, do you feel like George Gascon, the current District Attorney of LA County, has done a good job as DA? Take it away.
Take it away. I don't know what I accomplished by criticizing other elected officials. I'm not going to take a position in that race nor comment. What I can tell you, though, you like that? Okay, thank you. But what I can tell you, though, is that we need to do both things. We have to deal with public safety. We have to deal with crime. But I am also very invested in preventing crime and intervening in crime. So I have a deputy mayor for public safety who's here, named Brian Williams. And I also have a deputy mayor for community safety whose name is Karen Lane, and she's also here. The point is that his role is more traditional, police, fire. Her role is about community prevention and intervention and funding those organizations that work with young people, especially to get them out of gangs or to prevent them from going in gangs, or young people who might have been involved in crime, turn their lives around, and now they want to give back to their community. We also have a program called Circle, where people call up, and this is directly about the unhoused. And instead of calling the police, a Circle representative goes out who's a mental health professional and resolves the issue. Because what we've done as society, we've eviscerated the social safety net, and then everything falls through the cracks, and we think the police are supposed to solve it all. And I don't think that's fair to them. The officers that make sure that I'm safe all the time, I don't think any of them joined the academy so they could deal with homelessness, substance abuse. I mean, that's not, and it's not fair, or mental illness, but that's what we've done because we have chosen not to invest in communities.
Let me not totally let you off the hook on George Gascon. Let me try this from a different perspective, different way of putting it. What things about the way the district attorney's office in LA County, how it functions or doesn't function, bothers you the most?
Well,
see, I told you I'd go a different way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He's going to go a different way. It's tough for me because I don't know how the district attorney's office functions.
Well, but you know the ramifications of how it functions.
I certainly know what the critique is.
Yes.
And you know so many people are frustrated.
Yes, the critique is that he just lets everybody go and all of that. I do think that a whole lot is put on his plate that he actually is not involved in because the court system is. And so, but again, I am not a lawyer, so I can do the best of my abilities, but I think that a lot of stuff lands on him that does not belong. And maybe there are things that belong on his plate. Maybe he looks at some issues differently than I might. Was that okay?
You tell me.
Is that good?
Was that okay?
Is that all right, audience?
Is that all right? It was okay. They said it's okay.
All right, that's our live audience here at KNX News Town Hall on Public Safety with Mayor Karen Bass. Quick break, and then we're back in just a few minutes. Stay with us. And we're back at a KNX News Town Hall, Public Safety in Los Angeles with LA Mayor Karen Bass, Mike Simpson, and Charles Feldman.
We have with us, we're taking questions again from the audience and also from social media. Our next question is in the audience, Elvira, I think I got that right, from Crenshaw. El Rivera, okay, my apologies, from Crenshaw. Where?
Hi.
Oh, there you are. Hello.
My question is, can there be more crossroads or crosswalks in the Crenshaw district? Because of the safety issue of crossing in LA has been a risk, for the past couple of years, especially more so since cell phones have taken over.
Yep.
People are distracted.
Right.
Crossing the street is a risk. For example, in the Crenshaw area, King Boulevard is a very long street.
It is.
Obama Boulevard is a very long street. Mm-hmm. There's crosswalks only on the main
That's right.
corners where, you might have to walk what would be equivalent to 3 blocks.
That's correct.
To get to the next corner.
That's correct. So I don't know specifically if we can add more crosswalks, But we are looking at traffic safety, period. You know, there was the ballot initiative that was passed. And so looking at traffic safety, looking at ways to prevent pedestrian crashes, especially pedestrian deaths, it's definitely a part of the plan, and that was the heart of that ballot initiative, HLA. And the whole point of that is to do an analysis. So that's why I'm saying it's not just that it's crosswalks. I think it's bigger than that, and that is a part of that ballot initiative. What we're working on now is figuring out how to implement it, especially figuring out how to implement it in this budget season.
Yeah, do we have the money right now to do that?
Right. I don't believe so.
We don't.
So then what do we do?
Well, you know, when you have something as big as that, it takes a while. I mean, you have your plans to implement it, and you know, LA already had a mobility plan. And one of the reasons why that ballot initiative came up was because we hadn't implemented the mobility plan. But this particular budget year is going to be particularly difficult. And so even if it was a good budget year, it still would take probably a year or more before you move into actual implementation.
Okay. Damon Singleton from San Pedro. Graffiti Towers question.
Hi, Charles. Hi, Mike. Mayor Bass, hello.
Hold on a second. You're being...
So regarding the graffiti tower downtown LA, I heard there was money that's going to be put into cleaning up this abandoned development. I heard through the news and just looking on social media that folks were concerned that can we take that money and allocate it towards homelessness, or take the building itself and use it for homeless folks somehow get the money that's going to be used to clean it up, maybe get some folks in there sheltered maybe. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I want you to know it's been my obsession, frankly, because that building, $1 billion building that is abandoned, that was supposed to house 700 or supposed to build 700 luxury apartments. Can you imagine how many normal-sized apartments you could get there? And so I was on a crusade for a little while trying to figure out how we could get a hold of that building. And then, you know, the man that owns it is out of the country. I think he was the man that actually bribed Jose Huizar, who's in prison. So to me, I would think he would qualify as a fugitive, but I'm not a lawyer. But anyway, I am very concerned about that. One of the problems with that building, though, is that it's been built enough that now it probably would have to be torn completely down. And so you're talking about, I even had an estimate to see how much that building would cost, $850 million.
How much?
$850 million. Yeah, that was the assessment that we had. So you should know if there is some kind of way for us to get that building.
Is it safe sitting there as an empty shell?
No, it's
like
not.
That?
It's not at all.
And we're not just talking people going in there and parachuting off, but just sitting there downtown half built.
No, it is not, which is why the fencing was put up. Because, you know, it began to attract people from all over the world. And then I'm sure you saw the videos, I don't know, were those TikTok videos or Instagram? I don't know.
Both.
But well, I don't know what I was watching. But anyway, I saw the guy parachuting off the building. It was just, I mean, it was shocking. And so now that the fence is there, the other thing is that we were spending $60,000 a day on LAPD security. And so now we're transitioning. We're not spending that anymore because of the fencing. People aren't going up. And then, by the way, there were operable elevators. And so we shut those off and so that you can't go up in the building anymore. But you also can't get there because of the type of fencing. But now I think we're moving into private security.
Gloria from Burbank. Where are you? Wait, Jonathan. Wait for Jonathan. Jonathan's rushing over. He's almost there. He's there.
Thank you.
Gloria.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor Bass, and thank you for your time. So, like many Angelenos, I enjoy my walks at night and have noticed, of course, a little uptick in criminal activity, and I try to report that through the correct parameters. And unfortunately, I've met with a lot of hang-ups or transfer me to departments that are closed. Police departments are closed. And I want to know: is there visibility in your office about this issue, and what is your office doing to help Angelenos like myself report these things and help with the preventative measures and work with our law enforcement partners.
And so I'm sorry if you were unable to report it. I was having a little difficulty in hearing as to understand why. Were you were calling the police department?
Yeah, well, I was calling the numbers, the 311 or the non-emergency lines,
yes.
and I was also told to call the patrol, the police departments around, but whenever I call, it's very much in the last 6 months, I had about 7 different incidences. They were just hang-ups, or they were just ringing, or they would transfer me to places that were closed. And I really want to help, like
Right.
other Angelenos, and I was wondering, what is your department doing to help with that?
Right. Well, one thing that we are trying to do is to increase the visibility of officers in certain neighborhoods. There's some neighborhoods I go to, for example, one in the Valley, on one of the commercial strips that is constantly dealing with break-ins. Some of it's related to the unhoused, some of it is not. And I asked the police department if they would increase the visibility through bikes, officers on bikes. But we do have a shortage of officers. For a city of 4 million to have 8,000, not even quite 9,000 officers is a small ratio. There's that, and then there's also mobilizing and organizing the communities together as well, so people do feel safer.
You said in your State of the City, this recruitment class is looking better than
Yes,
before?
it is.
Numbers are coming up?
It is. The numbers are coming up. Yeah, we had more recruits in these last couple of classes than we've had in the last 4 or 5 years. So now we gave raises to officers, we gave raises to city employees. Now we have a big deficit, and we'll have to figure out how to close it. But again, it's like 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. You have to pay the workforce. When I went and met with officers, this was long before the chief, I was meeting with them right after I took over, one, for my own education to find out what was going on, what they needed. And, and then when we got into the contract negotiation, a lot of the officers were like, well, I'm just going to retire. There's nothing to motivate me. And so we gave a sign-up bonus for new officers, and I thought we had done a lot. We gave a sign-up bonus of $15,000. Alameda County gives $75,000. So what has been happening is that our people will apply for LAPD, and because it takes so long to get hired by the city, I don't care what you're applying for, a lot of times they would go over to other departments, or they would go through LAPD's training, work there for a couple of years because it looks great on your resume, and then go work for another city. So we have to figure out how to retain our officers.
But it's more than money.
It is.
Because when I've talked to people, whether it's LAPD or the county, they say that it's a job that a lot of people just don't want anymore. And that's why they don't want to apply, or if they're there, they want to retire early. And some of the reasons they cite, and forgive me, but we do circle back to the current district attorney, some of the reasons that they've given me is that they think that their hands are tied, that when they do their jobs and they feel they are doing their jobs well, that they see what they perceive to be criminals set free or given such a light sentence that it's not worth their time. And so they don't want anything to do with being a police officer.
Right. Well, I'll just tell you that what we're going through with our police department is a national phenomena. Now, I just came off of working in Congress, and in Congress, I was in charge of the police reform legislation. So I was immersed for 2 solid years in policing all across the country, and it is the same phenomena, and it's been there for the last few years. Same thing. One, feeling demoralized, feeling as though they're not respected, feeling as though people who commit crimes get off. And so that's why, as soon as I was sworn in, I've spent a lot of time trying to build relationships with the department, with the officers, especially because, you go through a campaign and everybody says you have horns and a tail. And so I had to go show them I didn't have horns and a tail, and I don't hate police officers. And so I had to gain their trust, and respect. And then it was important that I put my money where my mouth was, which was the contract. And now we'll have to figure out how to pay for it all. But we will.
All right, Drew in Sherman Oaks.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to follow up on that question. You mentioned yourself that we shouldn't be tasking 911 and the police with taking care of homeless and wellness checks. And it has come to the situation, we all know about the Tenton encampments. Downtown and in other areas, it's not uncommon to walk down the street and see a person half naked, half dead, asleep. We don't know. And running this institution, I don't want to become the kind of person who just circles around and walks away.
Right.
And the question is, who should we call? Is it an emergency? Is it a 911 job? 311 and 211, from my experience and other people's, are broken.
Yeah.
Took me 48 minutes on the phone.
Yeah, no, that's
and 40
crazy.
minutes on the chat to get to someone, to get to county health care. Takes them 2 days to do a wellness check.
So, just separating those out, I'm the city, not the county. Let me apologize for 311. We really are. We do know that there's a lot of problems with 311, and we are trying to address that. But if you see somebody, you are left with 911 because sometimes you don't know whether they're alive or not, or whether they're overdosing, and you need somebody to come. And that's not a 311 call, that's a 911 call. I was with the 911 operators this morning, by the way, and they're way understaffed. I mean, they're understaffed over 100 911 operators. So when you hear that we are slowing down hiring, knowing that our hiring is going to be targeted, and we are hiring 911 officers. We're not, having a blanket thing of not hiring folks. So it is a real problem. But it is a difference because the city, you would call 911 because that's the fire department that's going to come, but it is the county that deals with mental health. So everybody can call her over there.
Get her card. Have you, I wonder, ever called 311? Do they know it's you if you're going to call? You test the system. Have you called from like a different number to see how long the hold time is? And if not, do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Once we get off?
Yeah. Where's your phone?
Yeah.
You have your cell phone with you? No.
I'm going to get it. I left mine.
Mine's off. Go ahead, keep talking. Let's see.
I mean, but yeah.
You go
Is that
ahead.
a good idea?
Sure. But I
think this also
what
goes
can I
to
say?
a different issue because we've heard this before too, and we'll circle back to you saying, people call and they get a tent off the street, and then another tent comes back. There's a segment that always calls and tries to get through, and maybe it takes 40 minutes. There's also, we've heard this before too, people who just have stopped because they're like, this is LA, this is how it is now. What do you say to that group out there who's just like, you know what? That's what it is.
Yeah, I would never, ever, ever say that. I mean, and I hope maybe after a year into this job, people believe me.
Here you go. Dial 311. No, you dial it. See what happens. She's dialing for those listening. She's dialing. The mayor's dialing 311.
Put it up to my microphone.
Yeah. It's county. Well, yeah.
311 is city.
No, it's city, right? Yeah, city.
Let's see.
So let's see what happens. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, can we hear that?
It just.
Continue in English, press 1. Para continuar en español, 311 is currently closed. Please listen to our menu.
Whoa!
Well, there's your answer.
Whoa! Okay. Well, Well, that was interesting.
Tomorrow.
Are they going to get a talking to now?
Wow. It'll tell you what to do. You will eventually, but after you're already discouraged because they tell you that it's closed?
Well, I'll tell you what. Dial it back.
Yeah.
We'll hold it on and we'll continue talking, okay?
We'll have an
and we'll
update
see if a
tomorrow.
live voice comes on or something happens.
Yeah, we only have a minute, but let's see. Whatever we can do in a minute.
We'll see. We'll see. But you know what, though? Understand that we cannot ever accept what is happening on our streets. We can't be lulled into accepting it. And that's what I worry about with younger people. Because if you've seen this your whole life, you might think this is the way it is, and I will not accept it. What I was saying that I hope people believe me is that this is why I ran. I was fine in Congress. I ran because I was really worried about what was happening on our streets, and I was very worried that people had become so demoralized and so angry, and they said that they've taxed themselves 3 times and the problem just gets worse. So you know what? Just get rid of these people. Just get rid of these people. That's what I was worried about we were on the verge of in this city. And I've seen this movie before. And one thing about us is that we're not historical. So we did this in the 90s. We had another problem then. And we just decided to lock everybody up. And we locked everybody up. And in my opinion, because of bad decisions that we made during those years, we're paying the price of it now. Because that's one of the reasons why we have so many people on the street. We invested in locking everybody up. We invested in building jails. We did not deal with the root causes. We did not deal with the mental health issues. We didn't deal with those problems. And so today, those problems have spilled out on the streets. Because you know what? The jails became so crowded.
And by the way, for the record, as we close on my second
Are we
attempt.
closing?
Yeah, but it's over.
finished?
You want to do another hour?
But so that you know, when I dialed 311 the second time, it hung up on me.
It hung up on you? Well, listen, my pledge, we will fix the 311 system,
There we go.
okay?
All right.
Mayor Bass.
Mayor
thank you.
Bass, thank you so much for
Thank you to the
our
audience.
audience. Thank you very much for being
Thank you
with
all.
us tonight.
Thank you. Sure.
Public Safety in LA, a KNX News Town Hall with Mayor Karen Bass is a production of KNX News 97.1 FM and Odyssey Los Angeles.
Watch and listen on demand at knxnews.com and on the free Odyssey app.